Therefore, now about 0.5% lower on the Nifty. The Sensex is down about 170 points right now. Some news flow on Yes Bank. Looks like a large trade. Over 15.5 lakh shares have been traded in a single block at under 117 rupees. So that's the news on Yes Bank. But other than that, just take a look at some of the other financials, because over there the pressure seems to continue unabated. The Nifty Bank itself has eased just a little bit, but not enough. Still down about 170 points over there. And the big culprits, of course, stocks like IndusInd Bank, Axis Bank is another one, Kotak Mahindra. So pretty much the entire financials pack, and add to it, of course, things like NBFC and the rest of the finance pack, and you'll see that there is quite a bit of pressure in that space. But one stock that we want to talk about now is Jayashree Tea. Bad weather has impacted the first tea crop of the season in Darjeeling, leading to a sharp fall in tea prices. DP Maheshwari, the MD and CEO of Jayashree Tea, now joins in. Mr. Maheshwari, good afternoon. Thanks very much for joining in. Could you confirm to us what has been the production in this season, and how much lower is it vis-a-vis the comparable quarter or the comparable month?
You mean the total industry as a whole, if you are asking me?
First, if you could tell us about your own company, and if you have industry figures, that will be great.
Ma'am, my own company, my production is ahead of last year by almost 1 million kilogram in first 2 months, and I expect another 500,000 in June. But that you can take as a exceptional case.
Okay.
In general, the production is almost more or less same like last year, because weather has been erratic mainly in Assam. Major problem is about the prices. See, we all were thinking prices will pick up in the new season, but so far prices are, if anything, down by almost 4%. So that is what is our major worry, and that I am telling you for the industry as a whole. My own company, our first quarter should be one of the best first quarter, because our cost is down, sale average is more or less same like last year, and crop is more. That's the thing.
Okay. So what are the current prices of tea? You said it's lower by 4% on an absolute basis, and do you expect further pressure in on tea prices on account of the weather conditions in Assam?
No. See, but this is something, a new trend that everybody wants to buy only cheaper teas. All the packeteers, they have a distinctive preference for lower price tea in the range of around 120 to 145. So all the high grown teas where the cost of production itself is more than 200 rupees a kilo, there if you don't sell, and this is the quality period, if you don't sell your tea for 250 rupees plus, then for the year or average will be much lower, and that will be disastrous. That is what is the worry. But let us say that now onwards we expect the market will pick up, because whatever lower quality they wanted to pick up, they have already done. So to improve that mediocre quality, they will need some very good quality to upgrade it, and that is where we think all the organized gardens, all the companies and all will have a better time as far as prices are concerned. Second thing is that orthodox teas, mainly because of Iran and exports, is doing quite well. It's around 15-20 rupees more than last year, and there is healthy demand. So people who could afford to are producing more of orthodox, which is a good thing. Export will go up. We expect the export this year, we should try and increase by around 50 million kilograms. That will sort out the problem of this small little overproduction.
Okay, so just like in many other sectors, the organized players are getting a benefit. But sir, this boost that you're seeing to your export figures, will that substantially change your domestic and export mix?
No. What happens? See, once this 50 to 60 million kilogram more orthodox production is exported in India, then this supply demand will balance, and prices will pick up. And we have got the opportunity because Sri Lanka is in a bit of a trouble. Their production not going up, their costs are extremely high. So India has got this window of opportunity, and we are trying to make use of it. And if you succeed in that, then in India that quantity will be less in the pipeline. And if you can take your export to 300 million kilogram from existing 250 million kilogram, all our problem will be sorted out. And to this effect, we have made a request to the government from the industry that, they should incentivize this export, and they should also incentivize production of orthodox. At the moment, we have a subsidy of 3 rupees a kilo.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Maheshwari, for joining in. So that's Jayashree T saying the problem for the industry is that pricing is going down on account of a higher offtake of lower price tea, which is pushing down the overall realization. Let's now cut across to Parikshit Luthra, who's in conversation with Uday Kotak, the MD of Kotak Mahindra Bank, and CII President Vikram Kirloskar.
Needed to put the Indian economy on the growth track. What's ailing the banking sector and what can be done ahead? Joining us right now is Mr. Vikram Kirloskar, the CII President. We're also joined by Mr. Uday Kotak, Managing Director of Kotak Mahindra Bank. Mr. Kirloskar, if I can begin with you. You have been talking about the need to boost investor sentiment. How can that be done? You've been speaking about a debt overhang as well.
Yes. We can't grow the economy with debt alone. And there seems to be a debt overhang, and we've seen this over the years. Equity has not grown. Look at the number of IPOs, look at individual people's equity. Finally, to do investment, I have to risk my money. My friend Uday keeps saying, you got to release an animal spirit. How do you do it for entrepreneurs? You have to make the cost of equity attractive, make it low. And that's what we are suggesting. We have just suggested some ideas like reduction of dividend tax. But I think the government and finance minister should look at the entire cost of equity and the sentiment around equity. How do you encourage people to really invest in equity? If I look at you look at developed countries where economies grow at 1 and 2% is one story. Don't copy that. In our case, we have to reach 7, 8, maybe 10, 11% growth to meet the aspirations of all the people. In that case, relook at the way you can't look at the way equity is looked at in the case of a developed country or in the case of a developing country like us. So we have to give full encouragement for equity. Let people invest, let people take risks, let people get reward out of that risk. And that's one area, that's what we've talked about.
All right. I'd like to speak about the auto industry as well, because it contributes 7% to the GDP. It's a major contributor to GST revenues as well. The decline that we're seeing is the biggest in about 18 years now.
Yes.
What would be your recommendation and wish list for the auto industry, which is also a big generator for jobs?
Last 5 years, auto industry has been growing pretty steadily. Some years we've had more than double-digit growth. So it's, I guess industry is also cyclic. I have not seen anything which runs like 10, 15 years grow every year. So that's one story. But the second thing has also happened. Two things have happened. I think the cost of a car has gone up significantly because we are paying upfront on insurance, we are paying upfront on GST, upfront on registration.
And new safety norms as well.
And new safety norms
BS6.
and BS6. So we are paying upfront on a lot of issues which has raised the cost of the vehicle up. I'm not sure how much of retail finance pays for all these extras. They pay for the basic cars, but these extras is one issue. Second is the real cost of retail finance compared to inflation. Our inflation has remained very low and steady for a long time, but interest rates, although they have come down from the RBI, how much has passed on to retail finance is another issue. So I think the real interest rate is still high. And I think this is one reason why there's a problem. Second, I think what I've explained earlier, perhaps a structural change in our mobility. Two cities with metros, Calcutta and Delhi, going up to maybe 18 or maybe more than 18 cities more being added. Metro ridership on the increase. This is good. I don't want to. I'd rather have more metro ridership than saying I must sell cars more. So metro ridership, I think this is one structural impact. And also I believe shared mobility is making a difference. And we have some data, and I don't have enough data to confirm it. We're seeing in private cars, which we sell, as my company sells, we're seeing the time between service has increased. We feel that people are driving less. So if that's the case, it's good for the economy, good for environment and good for fuel consumption. We have to get over this. I think if it's a structural reform, it'll come out of it and we'll start growth again. But the cost of the vehicle has to be brought
So
down.
reduction of GST is one thing that has been spoken about.
GST, but paying
specific to
upfront
hybrids,
insurance.
CNG, or for all?
I'm talking all across.
Yeah.
I'm talking paying across. Okay, forget the hybrid story, but you look at the insurance paying upfront or the registration paying upfront and some of these other costs.
So these factors need to be kept in mind. Mr. Kotak, I'd like to speak to you about the NBFC crisis, because when we speak about the slowing demand or the economy in general, a liquidity crunch is what everyone speaks about right now. What is the solution ahead? What are the things that can be done in this year's budget?
I think first on the NBFC situation, we need to first keep in mind that there is NBFCs and there is HFCs. NBFCs are regulated by the RBI. Housing finance companies are regulated by National Housing Bank. So there are two separate sets of regulators. My view, and we have to look at the NBFC, HFC sector as a broader sector because there is a spillover between the two sectors. My view is that we need to have a pretty clear surgical analysis, which is what I'm hopeful the regulators must be doing between issues of solvency, governance, and liquidity. We should try and avoid the market noise, which seems to be saying that liquidity fixes all the three. If it's an existing solvency issue, excess liquidity will not solve it. If at all, it makes it worse. Because for solvency, as Vikram rightly said, you need equity. Okay. Second is if there is issues of governance or misuse of money from the companies to group or otherwise, that's a separate issue. And where has that money gone? Where is it sort of moved out of the structure? And third is liquidity. And on liquidity, I think for good quality non-bank financial companies, there is enough liquidity available.
Right. There's enough liquidity available. That's what you're saying. We'd also like to talk to you about the revised RBI circular. Do you think it does enough for boosting investor confidence? Are all the concerns addressed?
I think whenever we see any company going through a period of stress, we need to divide the issue between can we fix it through resolution or liquidation. Resolution in a timely manner is always a superior option. Therefore, the RBI circular of June 7 enables the banks and other financial intermediaries to sit together and find a resolution framework. If it can be done quickly, as they say, it helps resolve the situation early. If not, even within the IBC framework, you first have a resolution window before you go to liquidation. And therefore, from a point of view of national assets, going through a resolution process is superior so that we don't destroy assets.
All right. And it is widely believed that corporate asset quality for banks in general has seen the worst and things will be on the mend here onwards. What's your view on that?
I think we are in a very interesting phase of our evolution. For a long time, you saw the real sector impact the financial sector. What you're probably now seeing is events in the financial sector maybe having some impact on the real sector. Therefore, it is now a 360-degree kind of a situation, and I have complete hope and belief that with mature approach by the regulators and an active participation of the FSDC under the leadership of our finance minister can help us handle this maturely, along with stakeholder and participant interaction along the way.
Talking about this year's budgets, what can be done for the banking sector? And are we probably staring at another large wave of NPAs in the weeks and months to come?
You are asked two separate questions. One is about the budget and second is about the NPLs.
Yeah.
Okay? On the budget, there is tremendous amount of hope and anticipation of a new government, a government which signals significant political transformation of India. It's time for us now to go down the journey of economic transformation. And on the question of stress, my view is we are moving towards a cleaner system. And if there is short-term pain, we have to look at how we get beyond it to build sustainable growth in India.
All right, we won't keep you waiting. Final sets of questions. Mr. Kirloskar, starting with you, what would be your recommendations and priorities when it comes to this year's budget? The economy is looking at a slowdown. All indicators, all major indicators hinting at a slow path this time around. What do you think needs to be done, and what's your recommendation and wish list to Nirmala Sitharaman?
Well, we know we can't raise the budget deficit. Budget deficit has been coming down, and I don't think you should try to tamper with that. We should go in the same curve going ahead and give stability to the whole country, the position of the country. Typically in a factory, I'm a factory guy. What do we do when we have less resources and we want to do something better? Just keep looking for bottlenecks. What are the bottlenecks in the economy that prevent things happening? And this is not only a finance minister's job, it's the whole government's job, it's all the stakeholders' job. Look for bottlenecks. Try to remove bottlenecks. And that's what we do at work all the time. We're always removing bottlenecks.
And maybe simplify.
And try to smoothen the flow. Simplify. It's the same thing. Simplification or removing bottlenecks is the same thing.
Simplification of GST filing? Because when we were traveling to the elections...
when you start bottlenecks or simplification, your costs also come down. Okay, it's a matter of not just it's competitiveness. I always believe to do well you have to be competitive. Quality, cost, delivery. Cost is very, very important. So cost of doing business is as important as ease of doing business. The finance minister, with the help of other parts of the government, to find out these cost centers, how to reduce them. That's what I would look at.
All right. And Mr. Kotak, what would your recommendation be? If you look at the GDP for the last quarter, it was at 5.8%, the lowest in about 5 years. What can be done to address this slowdown?
First of all, I think the global macro, for all the other disadvantages, is a positive on two counts. Number one, oil is under control. And number two, is the US yield curve is inverted. So overnight 240, 10-year 2.15, or even lower now. This is a great position to be, where we will have surplus global liquidity and less pressure on our current account going forward. Therefore, in this environment, India has got to do the right things. And I would really like to see an economy built on sustainability over the next few years, rather than being disproportionately focused on steroids.
Do you also feel that this time the Prime Minister has come with an even bigger mandate? So do you think the scope of putting things right, or scope for experimentation, is even more?
I think on a long-term basis, that's certainly the case. And I am very, very hopeful that India can transform itself economically on a sustainable basis over the next many years.
All right. On that note, we'll end. But thank you very much, Mr. Kirloskar and Mr. Kotak, for joining us. Very interesting discussion. And those are the views of top industrialists in the country on how to put the economy on the growth track. Thank you for watching.
Well, with that, it's curtains down on Midcap Radar. Your stocks when we return.